Have you ever felt like something about our world just doesn't add up? That the history we've been taught contains glaring gaps that don't align with the evidence before our eyes? What if everything you know about humanity's past is incomplete? Imagine civilizations before ours, not primitive, not backward, but more advanced, more powerful, more intelligent, completely erased from existence by forces we still can't fully explain. What if I told you this has already happened? Not once, but repeatedly. Entire societies with technology that defies our understanding, vanishing in an instant. Their ruins still stand today, watching us, challenging our modern arrogance. But there's a pattern, a dark thread connecting each of these catastrophes. One common element in every collapse. And the most terrifying part? That same pattern is emerging today in our leaders, in our systems, in our collective choices. How do I know? Because ancient records warned us. Because modern science is rediscovering what they knew. And if you look closely, you can see the signs repeating before your eyes. This isn't just about the past. It's a warning for our future. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the hidden truth behind one of history's most advanced civilizations. The 9 types of people who always appear before collapse. Will you recognize any? The impossible physics that destroyed them in seconds, that governments are now trying to replicate. The only way some survived, and how you can apply that lesson today. But be warned, what you're about to see will change how you view our world. Once you understand the truth about Thamud, you'll start seeing parallels everywhere. Are you ready to confront the uncomfortable similarities? To recognize the repeating patterns? Because this is more than ancient history. It's a mirror. And what it reflects might frighten you. The countdown has begun. The question is, when it ends, it's which side will you be on? We've all been taught that the further back we go in time, the more primitive humans become. Until we reach the Stone Age, where people were supposedly backward, devoid of knowledge. We're told that the civilization we've achieved today is the greatest in all of human history, that we're the most advanced, the most powerful species to ever walk the earth. But what if I told you that's all a lie? The truth is far more terrifying. The deeper we dig into the past, the more we find civilizations that rivaled, no, surpassed our own. Their knowledge, their technology, their achievements, all lost to time. What we call progress today might just be the shattered remnants of their forgotten wisdom. And the proof? It's staring us in the face. Consider this. Ancient structures, standing for thousands of years, defying the laws of physics. Buildings without steel reinforcements, yet stronger than anything modern engineering can produce. The pyramids, Machu Picchu, Petra, monuments that mock our so-called advancements. Scientists are baffled. The strongest concrete we have today crumbles in decades. But these ancient wonders, they've endured millennia, no rust, no decay, just silent, unyielding stone. And here's the chilling part. The Quran itself speaks of civilizations wiped from existence, not because they were primitive, but because they were too powerful, too arrogant, too corrupt. One such civilization, the people of Thamud. Picture this, a kingdom of unimaginable wealth and innovation, towers piercing the clouds, palaces carved into mountainsides, gardens lush with rivers flowing beneath them. They didn't just build homes, they sculpted entire mountains into mansions, summer retreats in the peaks, winter palaces in the valleys, a paradise on earth. But power corrupts, and absolute power, it invites destruction. The people of Thamud forgot who gave them their strength. They oppressed the weak, hoarded wealth, and worshipped their own greed. And when a prophet named Saleh was sent to warn them, they mocked him. Prove it, they dared. Show us a miracle. So God gave them one, a pregnant camel, emerging from solid rock. A living, breathing sign of divine power. Let her graze freely, Saleh warned. Harm her and judgment will come. But arrogance blinds. The leaders of Thamud, the true monsters of this tale, weren't just men. They were devils in human skin. They whispered, conspired, and turned the people against the miracle. And then they killed the camel. The moment the blade struck, the camel's calf let out a scream so piercing, it echoed through the valleys. A scream heard by every soul in Thamud, a scream that sealed their fate. Saleh said nothing. He simply looked at them, the butchered mother, the orphaned calf, the smug faces of the murderers, and walked away. 3 days, that's all they had left. The first day, their faces turned yellow. The second, red. The third, black. Panic set in. They hid in their mountain fortresses, their lavish palaces, praying for mercy. But mercy had left with the camel's last breath. Then, the scream returned. A sound so violent, it stopped hearts. Mid-beat, the earth shook. Palaces crumbled like sandcastles. And when the dust settled, only the hollowed-out mountains remained. Empty tombs for a dead empire. Today, we call their ruins Al-Hijr. The homes carved into stone, the last relics of a people who reached for the heavens and were thrown into the abyss. But this is just the beginning. Because the story of Thamud isn't just a warning, it's a key. A key to the secrets buried beneath our feet, the truths hidden in plain sight. And if you think their fate can't become you haven't been paying attention. The ruins stand silent. The wind howls through empty palaces carved into mountains, whispering secrets we've forgotten. This is all that remains of Thamud, a civilization so advanced, so powerful, they reshaped the very earth to their will. Yet in 3 days, they were wiped from existence. How? Why? The answer lies not in the stones, but in the souls of the damned. When the miracle came, it should have been undeniable. A pregnant camel, massive, majestic, emerging from solid rock at Saleh's prayer. No trickery, no illusion, just raw divine power made flesh before their eyes. Many saw and believed. But the rulers of Thamud, they didn't just reject the truth, they waged war against it. These weren't ordinary men. The Quran reveals their true nature. And there were in the city 9 men who spread corruption in the land and did not reform. 9. Always 9. The architects of deception, the high priests of lies. Their first weapon, doubt. Perhaps it's just a strange animal, they whispered. Maybe Saleh has some hidden trick, they suggested. Could be natural phenomena we don't understand, they mused. Day after day they planted these poisonous thoughts, watering them with half-truths and false expertise. They gathered their scribes and commanded them to write scrolls, debunking the miracle. They paid poets to compose verses mocking Saleh's warnings. They even staged their own miracles, clever illusions meant to prove anyone could perform. Such tricks, but the camel remained undeniable, living proof of God's power walking among them. So they escalated. The 9 rulers convened in their grandest palace, a structure so vast its shadow swallowed whole neighborhoods. There, in a chamber lined with gold and precious stones, they made their pact. We must turn the people against it, said the first. But how? They see it eat and drink daily, countered another. Then we make it the enemy, declared the cruelest, among them. And so the propaganda machine roared to life. See how it drinks your water, they proclaimed in the markets. Or watch as it tramples your crops, they cried in the streets. It takes the best grazing lands for itself, they whispered in homes. They invented taxes, camel tariffs they called them, blaming economic woes on the miraculous beast. They staged food shortages, secretly hoarding grain while pointing fingers at the camel's supposed consumption. They even paid actors to collapse in the streets, claiming the camel had attacked them. But still many believed. This is when they unleashed their most potent weapon. Women. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned, I have not left behind me any trial more harmful to men than women. In Thamud, it was a woman named Zalma who became the final instrument of destruction. Zalma wasn't just beautiful, she was brilliant, a master of manipulation who had enthralled Thamud's elite. She went to Qudar, the strongest warrior among the 9, and found his weakness, pride. You call yourself a man? She sneered, lounging on silk cushions. The people whisper that you've grown soft, that you fear an old prophet and his pet camel. Qudar's face darkened. I fear nothing. Then prove it, Zalma purred, twirling a dagger between her fingers. Or are you content to let this beast drink your children's water? To let Saleh laugh at your weakness? That night, Qudar couldn't sleep. The insult burned in his chest. At dawn, he gathered his sharpest sword and marched to where the camel grazed. Kaf sensed danger first, letting out a plaintive cry. The mother camel turned just as Qudar struck. The blade bit deep. Blood sprayed across the sand as the magnificent creature collapsed. The calf's screams echoed through the canyons, a sound so piercing it reached Saleh miles away. When the prophet arrived, he found the butchered camel, her orphaned calf, nuzzling her lifeless body. The murderers stood grinning, their hands still. "Red, enjoy your palaces," Saleh told them, his voice trembling with divine wrath. 3 days, then the punishment will come." The 9 rulers laughed. "What punishment? We are Thamud. Our walls have stood for centuries. Our wealth can buy any danger away." They didn't understand. The first day dawned with yellowed skies. The people's faces took on a sickly hue. Some joked it was just bad wine. The 9 rulers ordered more feasts to show their confidence. On the second day, the yellow turned to red. Skin burned as if with fever. The rivers ran sluggish. Animals grew restless. The rulers doubled the guard on their palaces. By the third day, the red darkened to black. Panic spread. The wealthy fled to their mountain fortresses, sealing the doors with molten lead. The poor wailed in the streets. The 9 rulers gathered in their strongest vault, surrounded by treasures they could no longer enjoy. Then, silence. A silence so complete it hurt the ears. Then the scream came, not from any human throat, but from the earth itself. A sound beyond sound that shattered stone and bone alike. The mountain fortresses trembled. Priceless vaults collapsed like sandcastles. And when the dust settled, only the dead remained, their faces frozen in expressions of unimaginable terror, their mighty palaces reduced to rubble, their advanced technology, whatever secrets it held, buried forever. All except the homes carved into mountains. God left these standing as a warning we're still ignoring today, because the 9 rulers never really died. Their spirits live on in every tyrant who manipulates truth, in every corrupt leader who turns people against miracles, in every voice that says progress while leading civilizations to ruin. The stones of Thamud still whisper. The question is, are we listening? The ruins don't just whisper, they scream. And if you listen closely to the wind howling through the hollowed mountains of Thamud, you'll hear the most terrifying truth of all. This wasn't an accident. Their destruction wasn't random. It was engineered. By whom? The 9. Always 9. The Quran doesn't name them, but history never forgets the architects of ruin. These weren't just corrupt officials, they were master strategists of deception, architects of societal collapse. And their playbook, it's still in use today. Let me show you how they worked. The first layer, the illusion of choice. The 9 never ruled by force alone, they were smarter than that. They created systems that gave the people the illusion of freedom while ensuring every path led where they wanted. When Saleh first called them to worship God alone, they didn't immediately reject him. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they manufactured debate. "Let's put it to a vote," they declared. "Democracy in action." They gathered the people, men, women, even children, and framed the question carefully. Should we keep this camel that drinks our water and tramples our crops? Or should we still reconsider our options? Of course, they controlled the narrative. They paid orators to speak against the miracle. They planted concerned citizens in the crowd to voice doubts. They made sure no one could hear Saleh's followers, without also hearing their own counter-arguments. And when the vote went their way, the people have spoken. But here's the truth. There is no democracy when the choices are rigged. The second layer, the economy of fear. The 9 controlled Thamud's wealth, and they weaponized it. When the miracle camel grazed, they didn't just complain. They created artificial scarcity. Secretly, they hoarded grain in underground silos. Then, when hunger began to spread, they pointed to the camel. "See, it eats what should be yours." They inflated prices, blaming camel-related disruptions to trade. They staged shortages of water, then whispered, "If not for that beast drinking our reserves, you wouldn't be thirsty." And when people grew desperate enough, they offered a solution: remove the camel and prosperity will return. The third layer, the seduction of the elite. The nine didn't act alone. They recruited enforcers, men like Kudar, the warrior. But how? Pride. They flattered him. "You're the strongest of us," they challenged him, "unless you're afraid of an old man and his pet." And when that wasn't enough, they sent Zalma. Zalma wasn't just any woman. She was their most lethal weapon. Beautiful, charismatic, ruthless. She didn't just seduce Kudar, she dismantled his conscience piece by piece. "A real leader would act," she murmured, tracing her fingers along the hilt of his sword. "Unless you enjoy being mocked." By the time she was done, murdering the miracle didn't just seem logical, it felt heroic. The fourth layer, the theater of denial. Even after the slaughter, even as their faces turned yellow, then red, then black, the nine kept lying. Coincidence? They scoffed. Bad weather, hysteria. They commissioned scholars to write papers about unusual atmospheric phenomena. They paid doctors to diagnose the darkening skin as a temporary seasonal affliction, and when Saleh warned them their time was up, they laughed. "We have vaults that can withstand anything." They didn't understand. No walls are thick enough to keep out divine judgment. The final lesson, when the scream came, that terrible, earth-rending sound, it didn't just kill them, it exposed them. Their vaults shattered, their treasures spilled into the dirt. Their carefully constructed lies meant nothing in the face of truth. And here's what chills me most. We're replaying their story, the manufactured debates, the engineered crises, the seduction of the proud into becoming executioners. It's all there, just with different names, different faces. But the ending, that remains the same. The ruins of Thamud stand as a monument to one unshakable law. You can lie to the people. You can even lie to yourself. But you will never lie to God. The ruins tell no lies. The wind howling through the hollowed mountains of Thamud carries whispers of a truth so terrifying, most refuse to hear it. This wasn't just a fallen civilization. This was a calculated annihilation, and at the heart of it all, 9 men, not kings, not priests, architects of deception. But to understand them, we must go back further, before Thamud, before the mountain palaces, before the rivers running beneath their gardens, to the first great civilization that dared challenge God himself. Ad taught the progenitors of arrogance. The people of Ad were giants, not just in stature, but in ambition. Their king, Shaddad ibn Ad, commanded technology so advanced, he built a paradise on earth to rival Jannah itself. Pillars stretching into the clouds, cities glittering with gold, gardens where rivers flowed uphill at his command. And their fate? The screaming wind. For 7 nights and 8 days, a hurricane of divine wrath scoured their civilization from the earth, leaving nothing but hollowed corpses, as though they were decayed palm trunks, the Quran describes. But here's what the history scrolls omit. Not all of Ad perished. A remnant survived. The cunning ones. The ones who saw the storm coming and burrowed underground. These survivors were weaker than their ancestors, but infinitely more dangerous. They learned from Ad's fatal mistake. Never challenge God openly. Instead, they worked in the shadows. And when they emerged, they called themselves Thamud. The bloodline of the Nine. The Nine didn't rise by accident. They were bred into existence. Generation after generation, the descendants of Ad refined their arts. The science of control, the alchemy of deception, the engineering of souls. By the time of Saleh, they had perfected invisible tyranny. They no longer needed towering monuments to proclaim their power. They made the people build those monuments for them. They didn't demand worship as gods. They made the people worship their systems instead. And when Saleh came with his miracle, the she-camel emerging from stone, they didn't panic. They adapted. The shadow government, the Nine operated through 4 unholy pillars. The Ministry of Truth, they established history's first propaganda machine. Scribes to rewrite events, poets to spin lies into verse, scholars to manufacture doubt actors to stage miracles of their own. Any divine sign could be debunked. Any prophet could be labeled mad, drunk, or demon-possessed. The economy of fear. They didn't just hoard wealth, they weaponized scarcity, secretly dammed rivers, then blamed droughts on the she-camel stockpiled grain in hidden silos, then staged. Famines inflated prices, then pointed fingers at disruptive believers. Hunger makes even the righteous desperate. The temple of vice, at the heart of their capital, stood a palace unlike any other, part brothel, part political arena, part laboratory of corruption. Here they bred their most lethal weapons, Zalma and her sisters. Beautiful, brilliant, utterly amoral. Trained from birth to identify a man's weakness, pride, lust, greed, and exploit it. The golden youth, sons of elites, raised to equate skepticism with sophistication, decadence with power. The whisperers, servants planted in every household to murmur doubts, spread rumors, and normalize betrayal. The cult of progress, their masterstroke. Rebranding rebellion as enlightenment. Tradition is ignorance, miracles are superstition, morality is oppression. Sound familiar? The fatal miscalculation. The nine prepared for everything. Earthquakes. Their vaults were suspended on liquid stone. Floods. Their cities stood on tiered platforms. Plagues. They had physicians trained in ancient medicine, but the scream, they never saw it coming. Not a sound, but the absence of sound. A vacuum of noise so absolute, it shattered eardrums before the real destruction began. Then, the unmaking. Stone melted like wax. Gold evaporated like mist. The mighty were frozen mid-sneer, their faces locked in final moments of realization. The unkillable idea. Here's the nightmare we must confront. Did the nine truly die? Their bodies. Yes, their methods, they're carved into human history. The same controlled narratives, the same engineered crises, the same seduction of the strong into becoming butchers. Look at our world. The ministries of truth now wear corporate logos. The temples of vice are called entertainment empires. The cult of progress demands we call darkness light. The Quran warns, so observe how was the end of the schemers. But are we observing or are we repeating? The ruins of Thamud don't just warn us about the past, they're screaming about the future. The ruins stand as silent witnesses, but their message echoes through the ages like a warning carved in stone. We've come to the final act of Thamud's tragedy, not merely an ancient tale, but a mirror held up to our modern world. What destroyed this advanced civilization wasn't just divine wrath, but the perfect storm of human arrogance, systemic corruption, and willful blindness. As we examine their final moments, we must ask ourselves, are we repeating their mistakes? The final countdown begins as the third day of warning drew to a close. Thamud stood on the brink. The once proud civilization now trembled in fear. The wealthy had retreated to their mountain strongholds, sealing the doors with molten lead. The merchants abandoned their markets, the scholars their libraries. Even the most hardened skeptics among them couldn't ignore the signs anymore, their yellowed skin turning red, then deepening to an unnatural black. The nine, those architects of deception, gathered in their most secure vault beneath the royal palace. Surrounded by gold and precious gems that suddenly meant nothing, they made their final desperate plans. Some argued for surrender, others for one last act of defiance. Their leader, a man whose name history has forgotten but whose arrogance it remembers, silenced them all. Our walls have stood for centuries. Our technology surpasses anything the ancients dreamed. If judgment comes, we'll withstand it. Outside, the city had become a living nightmare. Parents clutched children who wouldn't stop crying. Animals paced restlessly, sensing what human arrogance refused to acknowledge. The air itself felt heavy, charged with impending doom. And then, silence. Not the peaceful quiet of evening, but an unnatural, suffocating silence that seemed to swallow sound itself. The anatomy of divine retribution. What came next defies mortal understanding. The Quran describes it as the Sayha, a word that linguists still struggle to translate perfectly. It wasn't merely a sound, but a fundamental disruption of reality itself. Modern physics might describe it as phase 1, the stillness, from beginning to 30 seconds, complete cessation of all vibration, birds frozen mid-flight as if time had stopped water in the great fountains becoming perfectly motionless, the famous water clocks of Thamud all, stopping simultaneously, phase 2, the scream, from 30 seconds to 1 minute and 15 seconds, a frequency beyond human hearing that shattered stone glass, breaking outward instead of inward marble statues, vibrating at exactly 7 hertz, the frequency of human terror, the very air becoming visible as it rippled with power phase 3, the unmaking, from 1 minute and 15 seconds to 2 minutes, gravity itself seeming to reverse as debris rose upward, human bodies experiencing molecular dissociation gold, and silver flowing like water before evaporating entirely, the great towers of Thamud crumbling in perfect synchronization, phase 4, the aftermath. Only 3 things remaining untouched: the humble caves where believers had taken refuge, the orphaned camel calf found grazing peacefully, the Nine's vault. Now their ornate tomb, the poetry of divine justice. Every aspect of Thamud's punishment carried profound meaning. They had mocked divine signs, died unable to speak. They relied on walls and wealth, were buried by their own creations. They worshipped technology and power, were destroyed by forces beyond physics. They corrupted language and truth, were silenced permanently. The Quran preserves their final, desperate command to their children. Do not disobey your fathers, and shouted even as the ceilings collapsed upon them. This wasn't conviction. It was the last gasp of arrogance in the face of undeniable truth. Echoes in the modern world. The parallels between Thamud's end and our current age are too striking to ignore. The science of destruction, the US military's Elred sonic weapons, Russia's thermobaric father of all bombs, China's development of infrasonic crowd control devices, the 2023 discovery of ancient harmonic resonators in Saudi Arabia too. The patterns of corruption, the same 9 archetypes that doomed Thamud walk among us today: the visionary, who justifies any means for his greater good; the banker, who monetizes human suffering; the scholar, who sells his credentials to the highest; bidder the beauty, who weaponizes desire; the general, who worships power over principle; the spy, who trades in secrets and blackmail; the priest, who twists scripture for profit; the architect, who builds systems of control; the fool, who does evil, while claiming ignorance free. The coming reckoning hadiths predicting a wind that takes the believers' souls, scientists warning of infrasound apocalypse, scenarios, mysterious sonic attacks on diplomats, worldwide ancient texts describing weapons that make the stones dance. The survival of the righteous amidst the ruins. One truth stands clear: the believers survived not because of where they were, but because of who they were. Their protection came from living simply when excess was the norm, speaking truth when lies were profitable, maintaining faith when skepticism was fashionable, choosing humility when arrogance ruled. Their caves weren't specially blessed, they were simply the only places where people still lived, according to divine law. The choice before us: we stand where Thamud stood, at the precipice of decision. Our technology has surpassed theirs, but has our wisdom. Our systems of control are more sophisticated, but are we any freer? Our ability to deny reality has reached new heights, but truth remains unchanged. The stones of Thamud cry out to us: when leaders manufacture truth, be the voice of honesty; when systems create scarcity, be the hand of generosity; when culture glorifies vice, be the example of virtue; when arrogance reigns, be the soul of humility. The final lesson of Thamud isn't about their destruction, it's about our opportunity. Their ruins aren't just a warning, they're an invitation. An invitation to choose differently, to build differently, to live differently, because the Saiha doesn't have to come again, unless we force its return. The ruins of Thamud still stand as silent witnesses, their weathered stones whispering a warning across millennia. What you've just witnessed wasn't merely history, It was a diagnostic mirror for our modern age. The same 9 archetypes that orchestrated Thamud's downfall walk among us today, wearing different masks, but playing the same deadly game. Here's what the annihilation of Thamud ultimately teaches us. Advanced technology cannot save a civilization that abandons wisdom. Grand architecture means nothing when built on moral decay, and no vault, no matter how sophisticated, can protect those who defy cosmic law. But this revelation is merely the beginning. The story of Thamud represents just one thread in a vast tapestry of forgotten knowledge. Across the globe, other ruins whisper their warnings: Easter Island's Moai, the Indus Valley's mysterious collapse, the sudden abandonment of Cahokia. Each carries the same fingerprints of hubris and the same chilling message. This has happened before. It will happen again. Now comes the most crucial question. Where do we go from here? This channel exists to pull back the veil on humanity's cyclical amnesia. The patterns are clear for those willing to see them. The question is, will you be among the awakened few who recognize the signs, or the distracted masses who dismiss history's urgent warnings? Your journey into true history begins now. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew. One final thought before you go. Thamud's ruins weren't just destroyed. They were preserved, deliberately, intentionally, as if some greater intelligence wanted future generations to find them and understand. Will you heed the warning? The choice, as always, is yours.